The Handley Page Halifax was a four-engined heavy bomber operated by the British Royal Air Force during World War II. The Halifax remained in service until the end of the war, performing a variety of duties in addition to bombing. It was a contemporary of the Avro Lancaster. The Halifax was also operated by the Royal Canadian Air Force, Royal Australian Air Force, Free French Air Force and Polish forces. After World War II it was flown by the Royal Egyptian Air Force, the French Armée de l'Air and the Royal Pakistan Air Force. Design and development. Handley Page produced the HP-56 designed to meet Air Ministry specification P-1336 for a twin-engine medium bomber for worldwide use. Other candidates for the specification included the Avro 679 and designs from Fairey, Boulton, Paul and Shorts. All were designed around a two-engine installation, using the Rolls-Royce Vulture, Napier Sabre, Fairey P-24, a Bristol Hercules. Most of these engines were under development, while four-engined bombers were considered for specification B-1236 for a heavy bomber. Wings mounting two engines were still in the experimental stage, requiring testing that the ray and the resulting increase in overall weight of stronger wing meant further strengthening of the whole aircraft structure. Following consideration of the designs by the Air Ministry in February 1937, the Avro design was selected with the Handley Page as second string, and two prototypes of each were ordered. The introduction of the successful P-1336 candidates was delayed by the necessity of ordering more Armstrong, Whitworth, Whitley and Vickers Wellington bombers first. For quicker delivery, Avro and HP-56 designs were ordered off the drawing board in mid-1937. At the end of July, Handley Page was told to redesign the HP-56 for four engines rather than two, as the Vulture was already suffering technical problems. The Avro Manchester was built with Vultures and entered RAF service, but also suffered from engine problems. The redesign increased the span from 88 feet to 99 feet and put on 13,000 pounds of weight. Four Merlins were specified by the Ministry in September 1937. The mock-up was assessed at the end of the year, and construction of the two prototypes of the HP-57 began in March 1938. Modifications resulted in the definitive HP.57, which upon acceptance was given the service name Halifax, following the practice of naming heavy bombers after major towns, in this case, Halifax in the West Riding of Yorkshire. The HP-57 was enlarged and powered by four 1,280 horsepower Rolls-Royce Merlin X engines. Such was the promise of the new model that the RAF had placed their first order for 100 Mk Halifaxes off the drawing board in January 1938, with serials already assigned to HP-56 switched to HP-57. The maiden flight of the Halifax took place on the 25th of October 1939 from RAF Bicester, not long after Britain declared war on Germany. Halifax production subsequently began at Handley Page's site in Samlesbury, Lancashire, with over 2,000 bombers being built by this factory during the war. The Mk I had a 22-feet-long bomb bay as well as 6 bomb cells in the wings, enabling it to carry 13,000 pounds of bombs. Defensive armament consisted of two 303 Browning machine guns in a Boulton-Paul Type C nose turret, with an additional 4 in a Boulton-Paul Type E tail turret, and, in some aircraft, 2 303 Vickers K machine guns in beam positions. The Merlins drove constant-speed wooden-bladed rotor propellers. Subtle modifications distinguished the Mki aircraft. Aircraft of the first batch of 50 Mki Halifaxes were designated Mki Series 1. These were followed by 25 of the Mki Series 2, with increased gross weight but with maximum landing weight unchanged at 50,000 pounds. The Mki Series 3 had increased fuel capacity and larger oil coolers to accept the Merlin XX. A 2-gun BP-type C turret-mounted Dorsey replaced the beam guns. Introduction of 1,390 horsepower Merlin XX engines under twin 303 in dorsal turret instead of waist guns resulted in the Mk2 Series 1 Halifax. The Mk2 Series 1 achieved improved performance by removing the nose and dorsal turrets. The Mk2 Series IA had a molded perspex nose, a 4-gun Defiant-type dorsal turret, Merlin 22 engines and larger, trapezoidal-shaped vertical tail surfaces which solved control deficiencies from finstall with the roughly triangular shape original surfaces, leading to rudder overbalance in the early marks. Halifax IIs were built by English Electric and Handley Page 200 and 100 aircraft respectively. Owing to a shortage of Messier-built landing gear and hydraulics, Doughty landing gear was used. As it was incompatible with the Messier equipment, this gave Halifaxes with new designations. A Mark II built with Doughty gear was the Mark V. The use of castings rather than forgings in the Doughty undercarriage speeded production but resulted in a reduced landing weight of 40,000 pounds. The Mark V were built by Rootes Group at Speakin Ferry at Stockport and were generally used by Coastal Command and for training. Some 904 had been built when Mark V production ended at the start of 1944, compared to 1,966 Mk2. The most numerous Halifax variant was the Mk3, of which 2,091 were built, first appearing in 1943. The Mk3 featured the perspex nose and modified tail of the Mk2 Series IA but replaced the Merlin with the more powerful 1,650 horsepower Bristol Hercules 16 radial engine. Other changes included de Havilland hydromatic propellers and rounded wing tips. The Mk-IV was the non-production design using a turbocharged Hercules power plant. The definitive version of the Halifax was the Mk-V, powered by the 1,800 horsepower Hercules 100. The final bomber version, the Mk7, reverted to the less powerful Hercules 16. However, these variants were produced in relatively small quantities. The remaining variants were the Mk8 unarmed transport and the Mk-AIX paratroop transport. A transport cargo version of the Halifax was also produced, known as the Handley Page Halifax. Accommodation and armament. The bomb aimer's position was in the extreme nose with the navigator's table behind it, both posts being fulfilled by the same crew member. Above the navigator was the forward gun turret. The wireless operator was behind the navigator's position, separated by a half-width partition. The pilot and co-pilot occupied the cockpit above the wireless operator, aft of the pilots and on the same level as the navigator and wireless operator was the flight engineer's compartment. A further compartment aft of the flight engineer contained two bunks originally intended for resting crew members, but almost always used for treating and berthing injured crew. This area led to the 2-gun dorsal turret. The tail gunner occupied a 4-gun turret at the extreme aft end of the aircraft. In the Mk2 series IA and from the Mk3 onward, there was no longer a nose turret. The bomb aimer occupied a streamlined perspex nose, with a single handheld machine gun. The 2-gun dorsal turret was replaced by a 4-gun bolt-and-pull turret. The maximum bomber load was 14,500 pounds, carried in a bomb bay in the fuselage with 6 separate bomb compartments, and 3 bomb compartments in each wing inboard section. This division of bomb bays and compartments limited the maximum size of bomb which could be carried to 2,000 pounds. Production Halifaxes were assembled from sub-assemblies. The surface panels were flush riveted, although the application of the matte black night bomber camouflage probably negated the benefit. Total Halifax production was 6,178, with the last aircraft delivered in April 1945. In addition to Handley Page, Halifaxes were built by English Electric, Fairey Aviation, and Roots Motors in Lancashire and by the London Aircraft Production Group. At peak, one Halifax was completed every hour. Operational service. The Halifax entered service with No. 35 Squadron RAF at RAF Linton-on-Ouse in November 1940. Its first operational raid was against Le Havre on the night of 10-11 March 1941. Air Chief Marshal Arthur Harris, head of Bomber Command, was scathing in his criticism of the Halifax's performance compared to the new Avro Lancaster, primarily of its bomb-carrying capability. It was calculated that on average Halifax would drop 100 tons of bombs in its lifetime compared to a Lancaster's 154. The fact that later, Hercules-engined Halifaxes had lower loss rates and higher crew survival rates after abandoning the aircraft than Lancasters, and came very close to its speed and altitude performance, did not alter his opinion. Also, unlike the Lancaster, the Halifax's bomb bay could not be adapted to carry the 4,000-pound Cookie blast bomb, which was an integral part of Harris's firebombing tactics. It was progressively outnumbered in frontline service over occupied Europe as more Lancasters became available from 1943 onwards. With many squadrons converting to the Lancaster, Halifaxes continued to be built because it was considered more efficient to allow existing manufacturing facilities to continue producing them efficiently, rather than stop production for an unknown period while they converted to the Lancaster. While new manufacturing facilities were devoted to the Lancaster, Halifax bombers were progressively relegated to secondary theatres such as North Africa and Italy, while many were converted to or built new as glider tugs, transports and maritime reconnaissance. In service with RAF Bomber Command, Halifaxes flew 82,773 operations and dropped 224,207 tons of bombs. 1,833 aircraft were lost. In addition to bombing missions, the Halifax served as a glider tug, electronic warfare aircraft for No. 100 Group RAF and special operations such as parachuting agents and arms into occupied Europe for the Special Operations Executive. Halifaxes were also operated by RAF Coastal Command for anti-submarine warfare, reconnaissance and meteorological operations. After the war, Halifaxes remained in service with Coastal Command and RAF Transport Command, Royal Egyptian Air Force and the ARME Acute Air until early 1952. The Pakistan Air Force inherited Halifaxes from the RAF and continued to use them until 1961. Civilian operation. A number of former RAF Halifax C-8s were sold from 1945 and used as freighters by a number of mainly British airlines. In 1948, the air freight market was in decline, but 41 civil aircraft were used in the Berlin airlift, operating a total of 4,653 sorties carrying freight, and 3,509 carrying bulk diesel fuel. 9 aircraft were lost during the airlift. As the aircraft returned to England, most civil Halifaxes were scrapped. The last civilian-operated Halifaxes were withdrawn from service in late 1952. The low-cost airline business pioneer Freddie Laker bought and serviced war surplus Halifaxes for Bond Air Services operations in the Berlin airlift variants. Pre-Halifax designs H. Proposed twin-engine bomber aircraft, never built. HP proposed twin-engine bomber aircraft, fitted with 2 Rolls-Royce Vulture engines, never built. HP-57H. The first Halifax prototype, Halifax MK. The second prototype, Halifax B2 Series 1. Media related to Handley Page Halifax B Mark I at Wikimedia Commons. 4-engined long-range heavy bomber aircraft powered by Rolls-Royce Merlin engines. The first production version. Armament consisted of nose turret with 2 guns, tail turret with 4 guns and 2 beam guns. Halifax B2 Series 2 stressed for operating at a higher gross weight. Halifax B2 Series 3, re-engined with Merlin XX engines, introduced new upper turret in place of beam guns, with revised undercarriage and additional center section fuel tanks. HP-58 Halifax Mk2 projected variant with revised armament including 20mm cannon and no tail turret. Due to problems with the new armament, the project was cancelled and the Mk2 designation given to HP-59. HP.59 Media related to Handley Page Halifax B Mark II at Wikimedia Commons. Halifax Mk2, new variant with increased takeoff weight, fuel and weapons carriage. Halifax B2 Series 1, first series of the bomber variant. From March 1942 onwards, these were fitted with TR-1335 navigation aids. Halifax B2 Series 1 SOE, special version for special operations executive used to drop supplies over Europe. Nose armament and dorsal turret removed, the nose being faired over, as well as changes to the fuel vent pipes and exhaust shrouds. Halifax B2 Series 1 generally similar to the aircraft used by the SOE. These were employed in the bombing role. These aircraft were more varied in appearance, especially concerning the fitting of dorsal armament, with some aircraft retaining the standard Boulton-Paul Type C turret in different mounts, with others mounting a Type A turret. There were also examples with no dorsal turret, similar to the SOE aircraft. Halifax B2 Series IA, modified with new glazed nose section, new radiators and new fin and rudder. The dorsal turret was changed to a 4-gun Boulton-Paul Type A Mk8, and there were improvements to the bomb bay door ceiling. Some aircraft were fitted with the H2S radar. Halifax B2 Series 1 freighter. A few MKIs were employed in the transport role in Great Britain and in the Middle East. Halifax B2 Series 2, single aircraft modified with 3-blade Rotol propellers and Merlin 22 engines. Rejected in favor of Mk3. Halifax A2. According to some sources, a handful of the airborne forces Halifaxes were converted into B2s. If this is true, they might have been designated A2 or may have retained the bomber designations. Halifax GR2 media related to Handley Page Halifax GR Mark II at Wikimedia Commons Coastal Command variant of the Halifax B2. Halifax GR B2 Series 1, a handful of aircraft converted from Series 1 a special to GR2 standard, having differences in dorsal armament. The main difference was the fitting of AASV Mk3 radar in an H2S type fairing. Sometimes a 50 machine gun was fitted in the faired nose. Halifax GR2 Series I, a definitive coastal command variant of the GR2 with glazed nose mounting, 50 machine gun, Merlin XX 22 engines, BPA-type dorsal turret and extra long-range fuel tanks in fuselage. A ventral turret holding a single 50 machine gun was mounted on most aircraft, although some employed the ASV Mk3 radar in its place. Halifax Met.2. Some sources suggest that there were a meteorological variant of the B2 designated Met.2, but this is unlikely. HP 61 media related to Handley Page Halifax B Mark III at Wikimedia Commons. Halifax B3 main production variant, fitted with Bristol Hercules engines. B3 bombers were fitted with transparent nose dome with single machine gun, bolt and pull dorsal turret with 4 guns and tail turret with 4 guns. All but first few had longer wing with rounded wingtips that increased wingspan to 104 feet 2 in. Halifax A3 Halifax B3 bombers converted into glider, tug and paratroop transport aircraft. Halifax C3 Halifax B3 bombers converted into military transport aircraft. HP 63 media related to Handley Page Halifax B Mark V at Wikimedia Commons. Halifax B4-engined long-range heavy bomber, powered by 4 Rolls-Royce Merlin XX engines with square empennage and wingtips. Armament as B3 Halifax BV Series 1 Halifax A Halifax BV bombers converted into glider, tugs and paratroop transport aircraft. Halifax GR Coastal Command variant. Halifax BV bombers converted into maritime reconnaissance aircraft. Halifax B Vi 4-engined long-range heavy bomber, powered by 4 1,615 horsepower Bristol Hercules 16 radial engines with H2S radar. No dorsal turret, square empennage, round wingtips. Halifax C Vi Halifax B Vi bombers converted into military transport aircraft. Halifax GR Vi Coastal Command variant. Halifax B Vi bombers converted into maritime reconnaissance aircraft. Halifax B7 4-engined long-range heavy bomber, powered by 4 1,615 horsepower Bristol Hercules 16 radial engines. Round wingtips. Armament as B3 Halifax A7 Halifax B VIIs converted into paratroop transport and glider tug aircraft. Halifax C7 Halifax B VIIs bombers converted into military transport aircraft. HP 70 media related to Handley Page Halifax C8 at Wikimedia Commons. Halifax C8 cargo and passenger transport aircraft. HP 71 Halifax AIX paratroop transport glider tug aircraft. HP 70 Halton media related to Handley Page Halton at Wikimedia Commons. Halton I interim civil transport version. Post-war, a number of Halifax bombers were converted into civilian transport aircraft. Halton II VIP transport aircraft for the Maharaja Gakwar of Baroda. Operators: Halifax military operators, Australia, Canada, Egypt, Royal Egyptian Air Force, France, Free French Air Force. No. 346 Squadron RAF, number 347 Squadron RAF. Pakistan Air Force. No. 12 Squadron. Poland Polish Air Forces in exile in Great Britain. Number 301 Polish Bomber Squadron Sea Flight. No. 138 Squadron RAF, later No. 1586 flight before reforming as 301 Squadron Special Duties, number 304 Polish Bomber Squadron RAF. United Kingdom Halifax Civil Operators Australia Air Carrier Geoffrey Wickner, France Aero Cargo, CTAI, Sana, Norway Peter, Vingta Airways, Pakistan Airways, South Africa Alpha Airways, LAMS, Switzerland Air Globe, United Kingdom Air Freight, AirTech, Bond Air Services, British American Air Services, British Overseas Airways Corporation, Charter, CL Air Surveys, Eagle Aviation, Lancashire Aircraft Corporation, London Aero and Motor Services, Payloads, Skyflight, Union Air Services, VIP Services, Westminster Airways, World Air Freight, Halton Operators India Maharaja Gakwar of Baroda, France Louis Breguet, South Africa Alpha Airways, United Kingdom Bond Air Services, British American Air Services, British Overseas Airways Corporation, Westminster Airways, World Air Carrier, Survivors, the Yorkshire Air Museum on the site of the Second World War airfield, RAF Elvington, has a fully restored aircraft reconstructed from a fuselage section of Halifax B, Mk to HR 792 and parts from other aircraft including the wings from an RAF Hastings. It is painted to represent Halifax LV 907, Friday the 13th, from No. 158 Squadron RAF on the port side and N. November of 347 Guyenne Squadron Free French Air Force on the starboard side. Another fully restored Halifax NA 337 of No. 644 Squadron RAF, then based at RAF Tarrant Rushton, is a transport special duties version, and was retrieved from the bottom of Lake Josa in Norway in 1995 after being shot down in April 1945. It was taken to Canada and restoration was completed in 2005. NA 337 is a Halifax A. Mk. 7 special duties aircraft built by Roots Motors at Liverpool Airport and is now preserved at the National Air Force Museum of Canada at CFB Trenton in Trenton, Ontario, near Kingston, Ontario. A third Halifax is a B. Mk. 2, serial W1048S, the Sugar of No. 35 Squadron RAF. On the night of the 27-28 April 1942, this aircraft was taking part in a raid on the German battleship Tirpitz, its first operational flight. It was hit by anti-aircraft fire after releasing the 4 1,000-pound mines it carried, and the pilot made a successful belly landing on the frozen surface of Lake Hoklingen. A crew escaped to Sweden with the help of the Norwegian resistance, except for the flight engineer who remained behind because of a broken ankle and was taken prisoner. Within hours, the aircraft sank through the ice into 27 meters of water. In the summer of 1973, it was recovered from the lake by a team of divers from the RAF and a Norwegian diving club, and was transported to the UK on a British Army landing craft tank. It is displayed in its as recovered condition in the Bomber Command display at the Royal Air Force Museum at Hendon in London. Apart from the nose turret which had already been restored prior to the decision, the front fuselage section of Halifax MKVIIPN 323, built by Fairey Aviation at Manchester, is displayed at the Imperial War Museum in London. PN 323 was the final Halifax scrapped at Radlett, with the forward fuselage being recovered in 1965 and the nose section crew compartment in moved to the IWM 1978. On the 26th of November 2006, archaeologists from the Warsaw Uprising Museum, Poland, unearthed remains of another Halifax from No. 148 Squadron RAF, which was found in southern Poland, near the city of Dąbrowa-Tarnowska. It was shot down on the night 4–5 August 1944 while returning from the airdrop action during the Warsaw Uprising. In August 1945, while on weather patrol, the aging Halifax bomber LW-170 from No. 518 Squadron RAF sprang a fuel leak and, while trying to return to base, was forced to ditch off the Hebrides Islands west of Scotland. A project is currently underway with the stated aim of finding, recovering and restoring Halifax LW-170. When it is recovered, it will be restored and displayed at the Bomber Command Museum of Canada in Nanton, Alberta, Canada. One side of the nose and cockpit of Halifax Mk. 7 NP707, which completed 67 operations with No. 432 Squadron RCAF, was saved when the aircraft was scrapped after the war. It is now owned by the Bomber Command Museum of Canada. In December 2014, a largely intact bomber wreck was discovered in a Norwegian fjord. It is believed to be Halifax W7656, which went missing on the 28th of April 1942, after an attack on the German battleship Tirpitz. As two of the crew failed to escape, the aircraft was designated a war grave. Specifications. Data from Bingham, Halifax, second to none. General characteristics: crew 7, length 71 feet 7 in, wingspan 104 feet 2 in, height 20 feet 9 in, wing area 1,190 feet squared. Loaded weight 54,400 pounds. Power plant 4 times Bristol Hercules 16 radial engine, 1,615 horsepower each. Performance: maximum speed 282 miles per hour at 13,500 feet. Range 1,860 miles. Combat service ceiling 24,000 feet. Rate of climb 750 feet per minute. Wing loading 45.7 pounds feet squared. Power mass 0.12 horsepower pound. Armament: guns 8 times 303 in Browning machine guns, 1 times 303 in Vickers K machine gun in nose. Bombs 13,000 pounds of bombs. Bibliography.